Ready to be Romanced. I'm Torry.
And I'm Melody.
And today we're discussing
Love
love
theoretically.
theoretically. Oh my God. Melody, thank you so much for coming on the pod. I'm so excited to talk with you.
I am so excited to be here. I love romance. I love Ali Hazelwood, and I love podcasts. So,
This combines all of your interests. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
yes, I am Melody. I work in social media. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, which is theoretically where this book takes place, even though you would not be able to tell.
No, literally, literally.
It was so annoying. I have so many gripes about that, but I love reading. I read so often. I think I did like 100 books last year. Whether I'm at the bar, I'm at the club, I'm like reading. Like if I'm on my phone, I'm probably reading. And I love romance. I like got into it about like 2-ish years ago, and it's like the only kind of genre that I can just know that I will always like it no matter what.
It's so true. I feel like every other book is you take a gamble,
Yes.
and like sometimes in romance, because it's such a diverse genre, you take a gamble too. But like it's absolutely wild to me that like I don't know, I find something good in like most books, and if I don't, I just DNF it and don't talk about
Exactly.
it.
And I feel like it covers so much about like how you feel as a person, like what you learn, what you grow. Like people think it's all about like smut and like lust, but it's not. It's about people actually growing and learning things about themselves.
Totally. And that is with this book. I can't wait to like dive into it because I just felt so not seen by Elsie, but like really like her storyline I feel like is really relatable. So we'll get into that.
I'm literally Elsie. So that is how I feel. If your favorite song
Oh
off
my
folklore
God.
is Mirror Ball, you should read this book. Like that's
Oh my God, that's so funny. So spoilers ahead because we're going to dive into Love Theoretically, which is a book written by Ali Hazelwood, and it was published on June 13th, 2023. All of her books are like, she's a new author. She's had like very successful books in the past handful of years, and I would say The Love Hypothesis is her most popular, but this one probably a second. And I want to say I enjoyed this book so much. I'm not even really a big contemporary romance girly,
Mhm.
but it was really good. It was really fun. It's a good balance of certain elements.
I agree. This is like my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. I've read all of them except for Bride. And I feel like it's the most developed. It feels so romantic, which is my favorite part about it. Like the relationship feels so real and they actually feel made for each other, which is not as common in the genre as you think they would be.
Yes, oh my God, that's so true. Especially because with standalone books,
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of times you can feel rushed, like the relationship feels rushed, unless it's like a duet or a trilogy, and this one doesn't at all.
Until he's like, I'll marry you and like I love you. Like at the
Yeah.
last 5%, but we don't get there
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, but we'll get there,
Until
like
then, it's
literally.
totally slow
Yeah.
burn, but like not in a painful way.
Yeah, and you're right about the romance. Like, there's romance, there's humor, and there's good smut. Like, I think that was the thing that I was like worried about. Like, just reading the first couple chapters, and I was like, oh, this is like, I don't know. I just feel like sometimes with smut, like, you think that the characters have to be like bombshell hot and like super confident and like all of this stuff. And like, that's just not the case, and it like works just as well.
All about chemistry. And like Allie
Totally.
Hazelwood is funny. Like her characters are so funny. They're so relatable, self-deprecating. I can definitely get like why people get annoyed by her protagonists because they're all like,
Yeah.
"Woe is me! Like nothing is going right for me. I'm so smart in this field, yet I can't read context clues about this man being in love with me." But I still love it.
Yeah, me too. Okay, let's dive in. So we meet Dr. Elsie Hanaway, and she's talking like we get to know her a little bit about talking about her childhood. She talks about how she was like really big into science and she kind of felt like ostracized by that. She talks about this like Halloween costume she wore to school that like no one got, which like that sucks because you want to be, especially at that age, like you just want to be a part of like the in group or like the in joke or whatever. So we kind of get a sense of why she became such a people pleaser in her adult years. um this is like, yeah, too relatable. So basically, she crafts a different persona depending on whoever she's talking to and what they need, because she feels like that's the only way that they'll like her. And she thinks that, you know, she has to do something for someone for them to care for her, which is so fucking relatable. I don't think I'm like as in the weeds as Elsie is. Like, she was like literally basically changing. Like, there's a line in, yeah, like person to person. There's a line in the book where she literally eats peanut brittle because she couldn't say no. And I'm like, as a girly with an anaphylactic peanut allergy, like, I am turning down. Like, I will say no to peanuts. But like, it's so relatable when she was talking with her roommate about like liking
the movie,
the space oddity. Yeah. Like movies that are considered high art, when she really just wants to watch Twilight and stuff. It's like, that's the crux of my other podcast, Ready to Be Petty, where it's like, we're just talking about stuff that we like without embarrassment.
No, I am a total Elsie people pleaser. And I felt so seen, just like the way she has to change like every part of herself. Like, she'll change her diet, or she like, it was like so throughout the book. I didn't think of what else. But the way like Jack saw through her and he called her out on it was so unrealistic. But I'm like, I just want someone to do that to me. I literally complained to my therapist once. I was like, I just want someone to see like all my flaws and tell me them so I don't have to tell them myself. And she was like,
yes,
I don't think that's how it works.
No, that's so true. Oh my God, that's so funny. So we meet Elsie as an adult, and she is attending a dinner, and she is the fake girlfriend of this man named Greg, who hired her to be his fake girlfriend from an escort type app named Faux. And it's like where you know, are like dates for people at weddings and stuff like that. It's supposed to be where you like do a one and done, so it's not noticeable. But she's been going on dates with him for like 6 months at this point because she likes him so much.
Do you think the app is realistic? Like, do you think it could exist in this day and age?
That's a great question. Kind of. I definitely think that there's a market for like, oh, I have this family event, I have a +1, or like this wedding or whatever, I have a +1, and it's like, I don't want to gamble on a rando because who knows how they'll mix.
Yeah.
I think that the benefit of something like this is like, hopefully the fake dater is a person that can manage social situations.
Just like Elsie.
So I guess like, just like Elsie, but I guess you're right. Like, they would have to have such a high level of like, I don't know, emotional intelligence or whatever that to like be a good fake dater.
Yeah, I guess you could just hire all actors. But I did like that it wasn't just like a Tinder style app where you just like find someone to message them. Like, there was an actual manager of that, which I guess Ali Hazelwood was kind of trying to be realistic.
Yeah, totally. So Greg's family doesn't really speak to him about like his job or like anything about him personally. But his mom really cares that he has a girlfriend or like a future wife because I guess they're rich and there's like, you know, a family estate is on the line.
Very like Knives Out kind of core.
Yeah,
It's just like weird because it was like only like in like 3 parts of the book did they talk about how crazy that family was. I feel like you could have read an entire book about how crazy that family sounded.
No, totally. Because it was very like, you see this in a lot of like billionaire romances where it's like, or should I say billionaire romances or millionaire? I'm
billionaire because that Christina Lauren book, right?
Yes. I just realized I was like, oh, they're probably actually not billionaires, but yeah, like you see that in billionaire romances a lot. Like the family's like caring if you have like a trad relationship, I guess, for the sake of their family business. But yeah, we learned that Greg feels pressured because he's on the ace-aro spectrum, which is like the aromantic, asexual spectrum. And so he doesn't want to date anyone and he feels this pressure. So he hires Elsie. She needs the extra income. She's an adjunct professor and she doesn't make a lot of money. She has diabetes, which comes into play throughout the book, and she doesn't have health insurance. So she needs to have these jobs to pay for her insulin, which was like fucking too real.
I love the representation. Like when I went to the Ali Hazelwood book talk, That was like the one thing she talked about in regards to this book is like she wanted to bring representation those two parts of her life. So like living without health insurance is the worst thing in the world. And I did not want to read that much about it, but I'm glad that she included it.
No, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And then to like have a character that's ace like is
Mhm.
also really representative because we don't in romance especially like we don't see that too often.
Yeah. And it was just mentioned. It wasn't like a whole chapter was spent on it. It was just a very minor plot point that gave representation. I feel like she did a good job. That.
Totally. Yeah, it wasn't like dwelled on or anything like that.
Mhm.
So she goes to the party with Greg and she bumps into this man, Jack, who is Greg's older brother. And she's like basically scared to see him because he is like indifferent towards her,
Mhm.
which we find out is because he calls her on her bullshit. But she just thinks it's because he doesn't like her and she's like, well, everyone likes me, or I make them like me because I become a different person. So like what is going on with his brother?
I like didn't realize this until I reread the book for the third time. But the reason like Jack doesn't say anything is because he wants to get a reaction out of her because he thinks that's the only way he'll see like the real her. And I
The
like
real
the
her.
Ray, I like swoon. But I do feel like it's like a very really realistic like enemies to lovers because it actually makes sense like why he's doing what he's doing and it's not malicious. That's like why I don't love enemies to lovers. I'm like I never believe it. But this is more believable.
Right. Yeah, they're more like it's not even enemies, it's like competition or
Yeah.
like it's good. So he's indifferent towards her, but they have some interesting interactions. Like for example, there's one time she's at a party and she has like low blood sugar and she or her like pump malfunctions and she's fainty and he like
Large muscles come around like
yeah,
my
picks
thin
her up.
torso. Like he
Yeah.
picks me up like I'm nothing. Like my dainty body. Oh my God.
Yeah, like, just carries her around, helps her out. And they have an interaction at this party where there's a Go board. Have you ever played Go or heard of Go before
No, how do
this?
you hold a piece between your second? Can we explain the physics of Go?
I
I don't
I literally wanted to kill myself.
know.
Who mentioned it that I think he mentions it when he's talking to her. He's like, I couldn't believe someone like picked up the Go
I
piece,
saw this
but the
girl who,
traditional way.
yeah, who did it with her two fingers.
Yeah, it's the index finger and the middle finger. So I literally in the book, like when I was reading, I was like, how would you pick up the
Chopsticks.
pieces? And I googled it and it's like black and white pieces, but I didn't even give a fuck enough to like read what the game
I'm
was.
like, why did
Like
Ali choose Go specifically? Do you think she asked physicists, what games do you play? Like, is this accurate? Can we ask a physicist?
it seems like she just picked like a hard like it had to be really hard because it was like such a moment that she happened to like like play Go and she doesn't win, they like draw or
Mhm.
whatever, but he's like shook to his core that this little librarian, which is the fake persona that she's put on with as Greg's girlfriend, can play Go, which was like a little presumptuous
Imagine if
because
it was
librarians
checkers.
are smart.
Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, the way you played checkers, it shook me to my core.
The way that you played Connect Four, like,
Please.
like killed me. Oh my god, that's so funny. So he like kind of interrogates her, asking questions about Greg and like upcoming things that he has going on in his life. And she can't answer any of them because obviously they're not actually like friends.
Mhm.
And so he also is like kind of suspicious of her because she seems like a bad girlfriend at this point.
Yeah, because she didn't know about like this like psychedelic retreat that Greg was going on, which later becomes a plot point, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I was like, that should have had much bigger ramifications. Like, I thought Jack would talk to Greg after and like expose her, but I guess he didn't. Like, I feel like there was like a
No,
communication disconnect there, and Greg should have just
totally.
stepped in so that Jack didn't hate Elsie for so long.
No, literally. It could have, which is most books could just be solved with a simple conversation,
Yeah,
but where's the fun in that?
exactly.
So she wants to quit Faux because, she's a professor, she's into physics, and she gets an interview for her dream job, which is a faculty position at MIT, which with health insurance and all of the benefits. If you know anything about higher ed, because I work in higher ed, the interview processes are so brutal. Like there's often multiple components.
Ew.
Like a presentation, an interview, a meet and greet with other people,
That's
like
horrible.
etc.
Like the amount of time to prepare. Like when she was saying that she like individually met with 7 people and then she taught 2 classes. Like,
Yeah.
are you not going to pay or compensate people in the meantime?
No,
Because like people are
it's
like
all this free labor.
an hour test with like for graphic design, like people will pay you for that now, but they won't do that. That's crazy for
Good.
academia.
It's wild. Like sometimes you're putting together a like proposal or a presentation on like a problem the department has or something like that. And yeah, basically just doing free work for them. And it's no different for her. She has like multiple steps
Yeah.
that she has to complete for this hiring process. And the first one's a dinner with all of the hiring committee. And one of the, like the lead member of the hiring committee, like pulls her aside and is like, hey, like you're like a shoo-in for this job. We really want to hire you. But there is one other person that's like your competition. And this person is favored by this man named Jonathan, who has a lot of sway on the committee.
I'm ready for you to talk about Monica or
Oh my God, what about Monica?
just like that was inappropriate. Like
Totally.
Elsie
Oh
as
my
her
God, yeah.
racehorse, especially knowing that in the end she was kind of lying the entire time. Like that is
Yeah.
bizarre to me.
100%. The whole time I was reading this book, and I put this in my gripes and grumbles too, but like it's kind of more than a gripe or grumble. It's like the way that this hiring process was so illegal at so many different points in the stages, it's so bad. Like it's so bad. Like you can't do this. Like you can't pull someone aside and be like, there's one other candidate. And also the impartial hiring committee is actually not impartial. They're favoring another person. Yeah, I wanted like Elsie to just be like, again, we wouldn't have a good book if she did this, but like just email HR and just be like, hey, like,
this is inappropriate.
something's
Can you
up.
fire all these people and they'll take all their jobs?
Exactly. You don't need to wait for one of them to retire, Elsie. Just get them fired. But in walks Dr. Jonathan Turner Smith, who turns out to be Jack.
The use of names and nicknames in this book, I'm like, Elsie, you're smarter than this. Like, we'll talk about it
I
later with
know.
George, but like, she kind of should have known. Like, there's no way she would have never seen his face in some kind of magazine or something about physics. Like,
Or Googling the hiring committee. Like, again, you
LinkedIn
get the
stuff.
hiring committee. Yeah, you should Google each member to see, like, what their work is or whatever.
Yeah.
Which she obviously didn't do. And she realizes 2 things at the same time. A, this is a man that wrote an academic article years ago about how experimental physics is way better than theoretical physics. There was more to it than that.
It's
but
okay.
like,
That's all you need to say.
yeah, we don't need to
Civil
get
War
into
of
the weeds
physics.
about that.
Yeah.
And that it basically discredited her like field of work and her mentor's work, and that she basically just outed Greg as having a fake girlfriend, or like looks like she lied about being a physician. So she's like obviously freaking out, and he is freaking out too, because he's like, you're lying to my brother. You're applying for a job when you're a fucking librarian. Like, this makes no sense. So he like pulls her aside to a bathroom, even though they're like trying their best to act normal. And she's like explaining to him like, no, like, trust me, like I am a physicist, but like I can't tell you the reason why I'm dating Greg and why I lied about being a librarian. You're gonna have to talk to Greg for this. But he's at the retreat, so we can't talk to him.
Okay, I think most of this is reasonable except for the retreat and their excuses for leaving the table. Like, she's like, I'm sorry, like, I think I touched a dog earlier. And then Jack is like, I think I touched a cat. Like, how did no one's eyebrows, like, raise? And then he, like, lifts her onto the toilet. So that
Oh
no
my
one
God,
will see
that's
her
the
feet.
worst.
Like, who is looking down at your feet?
No, I know, literally. And like also he would have been in the stall. Wouldn't they have noticed that his feet were turned like
The
the wrong
other way.
Yeah.
Oh my
Like it
God.
was so weird. And I was like, why didn't you just say, but again, this is like the comedy of the book, but it's like, why didn't you just say you need to use the bathroom?
Also,
Like,
like the physics of your feet on the toilet seat, like she would be like a V. Like that's not
yeah.
comfortable. Like she would have her legs completely
No.
out. Okay. We can
No.
talk more about
The
the
first
conversation.
well, the first time I pictured it in my head, I thought he like picked her up and was like holding her up like above the toilet because
Okay.
I was like that's gross. He like put her on the toilet basically. But no, you're right. She was like
Wide
on the toilet
open.
seat. Yeah.
But like I got the tension, like it
Yeah.
made sense and they were like on equal footing, which was nice.
Yeah, and they're like arguing and she's really nervous cuz she's like this is my like dream job and it's like all crashing down on me. And he's like calming her down a little bit, but like he's still suspicious. And like it's cute cuz it's like it's that yeah, that enemies to lovers little je ne sais quoi that's just like
He never pretends that he doesn't care about her though, which I think is my favorite thing. Because you never see
yeah,
someone who's so honest. And I feel like he actually maintains like his liking of her throughout the entire book.
totally, totally. Yeah, I guess like this is one of the pieces that I really like about Elsie as a character. Instead of like withering away and like just quitting the hiring process, like
Hmm
I would have done that. She's like, I'm gonna like actually just like kill it at this next interview. And Jack, like, because she knows that she's not the like desired candidate at this point, she's like, I'm just gonna show them that I'm like way better and like fit in and like should be hired over this other person.
Her reputation era.
Yeah, which like again, like good on you for having that like grit or whatever. Again, I would have just been like dead in the water, like at home like crying or whatever.
Yeah.
So the next part of her interview process is like a guest lecture and she kills it and she gets a tour of the labs and offices from Jack because they had her scheduled with another prof, but there was like a
A
conflict.
snafu.
A little snafu. He's still mad about Greg because he can't get in touch with him. He physically like watches her turn into different people. Like there's a moment at this point where one of his students walks in and is upset about lab space and she like talks about like she soothes the person and then he's like okay but the way that you soothed this student was like completely lying. Like you should be honest and like not lie to people.
Another word for Elsie is pathological liar, unfortunately, or pathological people pleaser.
Oh my god, as I was driving home from work today, You're Losing Me came on and I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
Elsie, girl, like but this is so relatable. Like
Yes,
I'm not gonna lie, I do this like all the time.
same. If I know
Like
like a
all the
little fact
time.
about you and I'm like trying to get you to like me, like I will bring it up, or I'll be like, "Oh my God, I just listened to this song and I heard, I know you." Well, like the subtext is like, "I know you like this song, so let's talk about it."
Like when you are doing it in a way that doesn't feel like you're giving up something,
Hmm
it's fine. But like when no one knows the true you because you do this all the time in every circumstance, like Elsie, like to her mentor, her fake dating people, her roommate, like it just it comes like as a tool to her.
Yeah. And like it's so relatable, especially in like a romantic sense. Because it's like all
Oh
you
my
want
god,
is for
yeah.
that other person not to like end things with you. So you think if you become like a certain you, and then I like look back at my relationships, I'm like, did they actually know who I was? Don't know. Could not tell
I think
you.
about that all the time. Like, how many times have you like watched like sports or something, and you're just like,
I've been
and
like,
you're,
how was your football team doing? I don't give a shit. I don't
I
even
don't
think
give
I'm
a
like, could
fuck.
they name like five things about me? I don't know, but I can name like all the things I said that I like that they did.
Totally. Or going to a restaurant. I even do this with like friends and family, and you like want the burger and fries, and you're like, I'll just get the salad.
I like
Like,
the beats. I'll share them with you, and then you don't eat the plate. Like,
yeah. And then you like go home and starve. Like, so
mhm.
you just like go and have to eat fully again. Like, I do that all the
Or like,
time to
what do you want to
people.
do tonight? And you're like, I just want to stay at home. But like, you end up doing the eighth thing on your list.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, that why was the most romantic thing Jack did for Elsie in this book was when they were supposed to go to a party and he's like, "Seems like you had a rough day. Do you want to like stay in?"
Oh
I was like, uh
my God. When he's like, if I wanted to do something, I would tell you. So if you have a preference, you tell me, like,
I
communication.
know.
Why do
I
they
know.
make it
I was
so?
shook.
Yeah.
I was shook to my core. So, yeah, she continues on in the interview process and she's like killing it. And we see Jack really admiring her work, but they still have unresolved issues because Greg is MIA. But at the end of the interview process, Monica hosts like a cocktail party, meet and greet type
Again,
situation.
another unnecessary step that is totally necessary.
100%. And she's like, "Oh, meet my son Austin." And Elsie quickly realizes it's her first and worst fake date situation where the man, like I guess teen, I don't know. He seemed a lot younger. Like he
Yeah.
read a lot younger.
Hmm.
But he was basically begging her to have sex with him. And she's like, no, like this is a dating app, not like for sex. Even though she clarifies sex work is totally legitimate, but she's like, that's not what this is for. And Jack is so upset that Austin is calling her out and being like, hey, we like went on this fake date. You're like an escort. And he like stands up for Elsie and like threatens Austin and stuff like that, which we
Oh
really
my
like.
God. Because Austin like said to Elsie, like, your makeup is bad and your dress is cheap or something like that. And she was like, I made a conscious effort to always have better makeup and like a better dress going forward. And I was like, that's so relatable how like the dumbest of people can say things to you, yet you like internalize it for the rest of the time.
No, and it's like sometimes the most one-off
Yes.
comments can just stick with you so much, like forever change the
How
trajectory of
you
your
approach
life.
something.
Like,
Yeah. I
yeah,
cannot believe that Monica never found out about this. Like that was
yeah,
something that I was expecting was like the expose, and then like that's why Elsie doesn't get the job. But we just never
yeah,
hear about this
yeah.
man ever again, which I think
No, literally. And I'm okay with that to some extent. But
same.
you're totally right. Like I was like waiting for Monica, like for Elsie to approach Monica or something like that. But
Yeah.
that we never get that. She leaves the party and like the next day or a day or so later, she gets a call from a clinic, and Greg has had a dental emergency at his retreat, and then he needed to like get surgery, and he's out of it because he was under anesthesia. Because he was so scared that his like mom wasn't going to show up, like, or his family members weren't going to show up, he told the clinic or the hospital or whatever to call both Jack and Elsie, and so they both show up to take him home.
Why teeth? Like, I guess that's the only way that he would act loopy, and I guess they wanted it to be funny,
Yeah.
but I'm like, what's the most realistic thing to happen to you on a retreat?
Yeah, like he fell into like the fire after taking psych. I
He
just
broke his
imagine
arm.
them in like a hut.
Stop.
Yeah, like doing
Planting
ayahuasca or
flowers. Yeah,
something.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, for me this read they needed something serious that he's under like
Mhm.
under anesthesia, but like not serious enough that he like we're worried for him.
And he can't be like honest with Jack, or like the important part is that he cannot talk to Jack or Elsie, but that they are brought together by some third party.
Yeah, that he needs to like go straight to bed.
But it was really funny.
Yeah, and we do kind of start getting more like the truth does kind of come out because he's like, Elsie, like we're such good friends, like I want to be your friend and stuff like that. So like Jack is starting to realize like there is something up and they're not like boyfriend and girlfriend.
Hmm.
But they take him back to his apartment and he passes out. And yeah, because Greg kind of spills the beans, Jack apologizes to Elsie for like accusing her of lying to his brother. And he's like, I actually felt really guilty because this whole time I've had a crush on you, basically, is what he says. And I was jealous that Greg was your boyfriend. And I was even more mad at myself because Greg is like, like a little bit of a weirdo, but you made him feel like so at ease. So I felt even worse that like I was lusting over you.
Oh my God. And he takes off his shirt.
Yeah, which was like, why again? Like something spilled on it or
Greg spilled
something?
like He
Milk
almond
milk on his
milk.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this was like when I started swooning. Because when Jack is
Me
honest and
too.
he's like holding her head and he's like looking at her and she just starts to get it, like I lose my mind.
It's so good. It's so fucking good. They're getting to like kind of more of the crux of what's going on, but Greg interrupts them. So we don't like fully get resolution.
Mhm.
But that weekend, Elsie and her roommate they're out at the movies.
In my head, this is AMC Boston Common. I like have plotted like okay, so they say Greg lives in Roxbury. That doesn't make sense to me. Like that's not his neighborhood. He'll live in Boston. I feel like he would live in Brookline or JP. But in my head, they go to the biggest AMC in the city, which is in downtown. It all makes sense. Though I don't think Ali Hazelwood actually knows anything about Boston.
Yeah. It was weirdly because it's like obviously it's set in Boston because they talk about MIT and Harvard and like she works at what U Boston or something like
And
that.
Northeastern, my alma matter.
Yes. Yes, yes. I think there was even like an Emerson reference and I
Really?
was like just like a one-off comment about like it being a college then. I was like laughing out loud. But yeah, no, totally like it was weird at how much I guess the setting didn't super matter to this book, but it's weird how little information or like place setting happens in this book.
I'm glad you noticed. Because
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I went to her book event in Boston and she never like once talked about the fact that the book was set there. And you think that you would like bring it up, but I literally think she was like, okay, where are there a lot of universities?
Yeah.
And that makes the most sense. But like Elsie's commute makes no sense. The three schools that she teaches at are like an hour and a half away from each other on transit alone.
Yeah. And I don't think she doesn't have a car.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Also, Jack owning a
yeah.
car and living in downtown, like that is not a thing. People also
Right.
don't like live in downtown, so it's just weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like the book didn't need a strong sense of place, but I feel like it always adds something.
Absolutely. And the book that we covered 2 weeks prior was People We Meet on
I
Vacation.
listened.
Thank you. And that has such a like important sense
Hmm.
of place. And so it was a little bit not jarring, but like it was just different that
I
we
agree.
didn't really like hear much more about Boston, especially because it's such a certain city. It has
Hmm.
such certain characteristics, one being the academic like hub of the US. But yeah, I was surprised by that too.
Yeah.
So at the movies, they're both coming out, Cece and Elsie, and then Jack, and then George. And we learned that George is the candidate that Jack wants to hire at MIT, and she's a woman, and she's like beautiful,
Mhm.
and they're allegedly on a date because they're
Her,
at the
her
movies,
fingers touch his arm.
and like they have the familiarity of like a couple.
Hmm.
Which they're just friends. We learned that later on. George is in a happy marriage, but George is like thrilled and is kind of a little bit like word vomiting about that she just got offered a job to work with Jack
Hmm.
because Elsie hadn't got the official rejection letter yet because of course you get that once it's all signed and stuff like that. So obviously George was still like negotiating things and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
she just didn't know. And it was like a big blow to Elsie, of course. So she runs away.
That made no sense, but I relate to like the weight of getting rejected from a job is like worse than actually getting rejected because it takes so long because they have to wait for like the other person to accept. And so I totally get her anxiety and I'm glad that we saw that. But like running away from like your best friend and roommate, like Cece being there made no sense to me.
I know, I
And then
know,
like
I
Jack
know.
is somehow strong enough to grab her wrist while she's mid motion. Like this, I also
Yeah.
don't get the physicality of that.
No, no, totally. Oh my God. Yeah, so it's like snowing. He like catches up with her, grabs her wrist, and is like, I can explain, like, let's go to my house, let's warm up because it's like the snow's really coming down now. And I can explain like the George stuff and like all of this.
Mhm.
And he explains to Elsie that he actually recused himself from the interview process
So
because
romantic.
he felt like he couldn't be impartial. And I was like,
And she's like to George, and he's like to you, and I was like, oh,
I
And
I
he removed
couldn't.
people from the committee because they were talking shit about her. Like,
Yeah, I was like, this is so romantic. Still, like, doesn't make up for the unprofessional hiring process that you put this girl through, but like, it was so fucking cute. And then this is classic romance novel that like I'm starting to kind of get annoyed with, but like I'll just roll with it. But like they're snowed in, so
at least it wasn't like my couch has like a stain on it and I can't sleep there, so we have to sleep in the same bed.
literally, literally,
Like buses run in the snow in Boston, famously. They always run. I mean, I don't
yeah.
know. I
And doesn't he like offer to drive her home and stuff like that? And she's
has a
like, it's
car.
not safe. Like, I don't know. It's like they probably were gone from the movies for like a total of like an hour or
Mhm.
so. I guess snow can come down that fast, but I was like, damn, like this makes no
No. Like the
sense. But
plows are already out there. Salt was already on the roads. Anyway,
yes, yes. But she has to stay over
she
is
has
the name of the
to.
game.
He has to make her hot chocolate.
Yeah. He like offers her hot chocolate. It's so cute. And then he's like, "Do you need to know this?" I actually was like, I literally was like crying because at first I was like, "Hot chocolate, like why
Oh
are
my
you offering like
God.
a diabetic hot chocolate?" And then he's like, and she's like, "No, no, no, like I'm not going to drink this," because in her head she's like, "I need to calculate if I'm able to have this or
Mhm.
not." And then he's like, "Do you need me to tell you the like
Bullet.
dietary info?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I was like, that's so nice because the point is that she doesn't have to ask, it's offered. And there's something so moving
Mhm.
about when you're just offered something like that instead of
Having to advocate for
having to,
yourself. Like the fact
yes.
that he's like able to anticipate her needs because he wants to be there for her so bad and he knows that she's not going to tell him. So he has to do the work. Like he has to bring almonds to a party in case her insulin goes out of whack. Okay.
It's so cute. Like, it's so fucking
I
cute.
hate how unrealistic it is
And
because it makes
no,
me think that it could be real. Sorry, real men are
no,
not like this.
no.
Unfortunate, but true.
No, that was the entire time I was reading this book. I was just like, this is a fantasy novel. This should be in the
I
fantasy
mean, when I told
genre.
my therapist about it, she's like, that's not real life. And I was like,
Yeah.
I was literally referring to love theoretically exclusively, but I was like putting it under the guise of like romance books in general I read.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, I love that you brought this up to your therapist because I literally thought I might bring it up to my therapist too. Because because the way that her people pleasing and like she calls it code switching, which I was like, that's kind of that's not probably the word you're looking
Yeah.
for, but like the way that she acts around other people, I just see myself in it like doing that all the time too. But like the way that she describes it in a way that like doesn't make light of it or like make fun of it, I think is or like I feel like just nowadays when people talk about people pleasing, they're just like, oh, I'm like such a people pleaser, like begrudgingly. And I was like, no, it's actually like so chronic and like so
Yeah.
debilitating at sometimes where you like, you sometimes you can't even keep up with these like micro lies you are
Hmm.
telling people because you are so scared that they might see the real you.
Yeah, especially like the fact that it's a woman in academia. Like I feel like that all works so well because in a professional environment, it's like you can't ever be yourself because you're constantly having to be liked by other people because unfortunately every job is so political, especially
Yeah.
the professors. They talk about how like hierarchical it is.
Yes, especially like in academia, but especially in STEM, which
Hmm.
like she's a STEM girly. Like I can't imagine. Like it is the environment that of why she has become this way.
Yeah.
I think that was another thing that I'm actually like currently working on in therapy.
Family and how like what you see in your role in your family can either make you like a people
Yes.
pleaser. Totally get it. Because it's
Yes.
like the argument styles that
Yes.
you see, like your family stuff, I was like so annoyed by the end of it, but like I totally get it.
Totally, because you think it's your fault that you're
Hmm.
like this bad person for lying, but or like
Yeah.
changing who you are or whatever, not being honest. But it's like it's the product of your environment that has
Mm.
made you adapt
Yes.
because this is like the way that you can get by.
Like you put yourself in a little box because it's like then the people I love will stop fighting.
Fuck. Okay. They're at his house and he's like, you gotta stay over. You can sleep in my bed. I'll take the couch. But in the middle of the night,
Dream sequence. Like,
yeah, she like is just having anxiety basically. And she
yeah.
goes to talk to him and she's like, I feel so bad for like being rude to George and like that whole interaction. And then she's like kind of like crouching next to the couch, and he like pulls her up on the couch and they
He like picks at her up by her hip, like hips, like,
yeah.
do we feel good about this? Do we feel like it's unrealistic, or are we just like, oh my God?
Like in a book, I'm just like, I love it. Like I love every minute of it, but like I gotta talk myself out of it. Now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I gotta,
this book is dangerous because it makes you like want things that like people aren't gonna pick you up unless you ask them. Unfortunately,
totally.
in real life.
Yeah. I will say about this though is like, yes, it's unrealistic, but I think it's like, let's demand better of the people that we're dating.
The communication in this book is it's so good, and I do think it's realistic in that sense.
Yeah, some of the like romancy stuff, like.
Let's get into it.
So yeah, they sleep over, and like he is in like the dozy state of sleeping, and he's like, you smell so good, and like all of this stuff. So she like knows it's like sexual, and but in the morning when they're like fully awake, he makes her breakfast and like wants to drive her home. And there's a quote that I love about this, because he goes, hey, can I make you breakfast, when she like comes into the kitchen, and she goes, oh, I'm fine. He goes, may I please watch you eat something? It'll be good for my mental health.
Oh my God. And when like he notices that she doesn't like coffee, and so the next time they're like getting drinks, he gets her tea.
Like so fucking annoying.
So sweet. It's so frustrating.
And he asks her out on like an official date, and she refuses at this point. But on the way home, they stop at his grandma's house, and we hear a little bit more about his family life, and so she like finally accepts his offer of a date, which is very cute.
Yeah.
So we get to their first real date, and he is going to take her to a small gathering with her friends and then take her out for dinner. And she has a really good time with his friends. Like they fit in so well because they're all academics as well.
They're all fucking nerds.
Which like I like that. I like that about this book. But yeah, in the middle, you mentioned this earlier, but she notices like that he gives her almonds. And so when she's leaving the place, she thanks the host, and she's like, oh my God, like, sorry for eating your almonds, which is like, girly, like, you don't have to apologize for eating like a pack of like 7 almonds.
Airplane almonds. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but like that, again, that's how deep she is in the people pleasing. And then the girl like looks confused. She's like, oh, we don't like have almonds. And she realizes Jack brought them.
Yeah, and then when they decide like what restaurant to go to, and she's like, he looks like he wants something simple and feeling like a burger, and he's like, stop thinking about what I want. Say the first thing that comes to your mind. And she's like, all I think about is cheese.
Cheese.
The amount of cheese representation in this book. It's wonderful.
It's so funny.
Trader Joe's.
And he takes her.
Sorry.
Yes.
Trader Joe's cheese section being mentioned. Ali Hazelwood knows
iconic. Yeah. She's a real one. But yeah, he takes her back to the restaurant that they originally went to at the interview process, because he could tell that she didn't order what she actually wanted to order, which was the cheese board.
I don't know if anyone actually looks at things like that. I was like, can you really interpret that much from someone? Maybe you can.
Yeah, maybe. Like, yeah, I feel like he was inferring a lot from like nonverbal behavior. I feel like
he's right, which is weird.
Yeah, he's right all the time. Yeah. I need to be like more observant, I guess. So, a few days later, George asks her for lunch and actually offers her a job. And she's like, I know this isn't what you wanted, but you could work with me on these projects. And then, you know, like someone will retire in the next 3 to 5 years, and you can, you'll have like seniority and you'll know the space. You'll be like the perfect candidate. And I can pay way more than your current job, and I can offer you health insurance.
Health insurance.
Which is so clutch. And she's like, obviously excited, but she's like, I have to ask my mentor first if he thinks that this is a good idea for me. And Jack and Elsie go on a second date. This was the moment that I was talking about where they were supposed to go to another like small get together, but he cancels because she gets a phone call from her mom and their family's arguing. So he's like, I feel like we should just like do a chill night. So they go back to his apartment and he has bought the entire Twilight box set
with the exclusive featurette of Edward going to Italy.
I was like, when they mentioned the, like, I know you just want to watch the Edward going to Italy featurette. I actually, like, I was like throwing up. Like, I was like,
I love the Twilight representation in like recent books as like, I don't know, like a legitimate thing for women to love reading and like not something to be made fun of. Like, I am just obsessed. There's a thriller
Me too.
called Midnight is the Darkest Hour where like the main character just like loves Twilight legitimately, like wants to be a vampire, and I'm like, I love this.
Same.
Yeah.
I love it so much. It's actually kind of an inside joke between me and Megan, who's been on this podcast a lot, where we are trying to mention Twilight every book we read on this podcast, and literally it's not hard because it's like a book that's been written post, you know, like 2006, 2009 mentions Twilight or is influenced by Twilight. Like it's like hook, line, and sinker. So easy. So they're watching the movie and they almost kiss. And
he's like, but I can't kiss you.
Yeah. He's like, this is too soon. He like stops them. He's like, this is way too soon. The situation is charged. And she's like, I don't understand. Like, I want to have sex with you. And he's like, I don't think we should have sex, or I don't think we should like hook up, because I feel like you're such a people pleaser. You would just be doing it because you think that I expect you to, and you would just be acting like during sex how you think I would want you to act. And so he goes, so she's like, okay, well, you're kind of also just not letting us talk about it. You're just making that choice. So he's like, okay, you're right. Let's talk about it. So he goes, how do I make you come? And she's like, oh my God, you fucking freak. That is such a weird question to ask.
No one can answer that. I don't care if you like professionally have sex or like you really enjoy sex. Like, you probably can't answer that like gun to your head.
In like a sentence when you're like standing there. So I felt for Elsie. I was like, this is brutal.
Yeah. All she wanted to do was kiss him.
I know. This is a tough sell, but I will say, I really feel like there's so many people that are having sex that can't articulate anything.
I agree.
I think it's easier when you're like actually doing it. I feel like it's harder when you haven't even kissed this person and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you just kind of want it to be trial and error. I think that's also super fair. But you don't need like you don't want a long dialogue or whatever, kind of. Yeah. But like,
I think Jack had a point. Like, I think
he did. He totally
I
did.
just think, like, if more people communicated during sex or any part of a relationship, they would enjoy each other more. Because saying what your problem is wouldn't alienate someone that actually liked you.
Exactly. And this annoys me so much about Elsie. This is like the worst thing I think she does in the book. Instead of being like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, she takes her dress off. Like in his living room with like the blinds open, and then he's like, oh my God, like, why did you do that? Like, we're supposed to like have a dialogue, but he's like, okay, fine, we can like hook up, but we're not having sex, and my clothes stay on.
Our clothes stay on until I remember that you don't have clothes on.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay. She's like, should I put this back on? He's like, no, but like mine will stay on. And so that they kiss, and it's really cute. And then I'm going to read out this quote, which is like kind of embarrassing. I feel like my cheeks are like flushed.
You got this.
But I have to share it because it is so good. So she goes, bed, we should go to bed. And he goes, we're not going to bed. He nips my cheekbone, then licks the sting off, and we both moan at the feeling. I'm not going to fuck you. We're just making out, fooling around. This is not... He hooks his finger into the soft cup of my bra and lowers it. His forehead presses against mine, and he looks down to the hard point of my nipple. Jesus, he mutters. Okay, again, so annoyed at her because she just keeps, like, trying to advance when he has been so clear about what needs to happen. But I haven't read a book where it's like they're not even really doing anything sexual. They're just making out, fooling around, like he's saying. But because they want to both do it so bad,
The tension.
it's so hot. The
And
tension.
it's not even like there's like a third party factor influencing the tension of like they're interrupted by someone. It's just two people who are like enjoying their time together.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Mhm.
It was really, really good. And I was like surprised at how good it was because I feel like sometimes in like rom-com novels, it's like leans too heavily on the calm. But like this was good smut.
She
Like
made
it
you
was
wait
really
for
good.
it, but she didn't make you
Yeah.
like mad because I feel like there weren't like 8 times where they almost kissed and then it happened at the ninth, which I think was nice. But it is like all the sex scenes happen like right after each other.
Yeah, totally. It's like a 3-chapter run.
Yeah. When are we gonna talk about like I don't know if you've like read about the Ali Hazelwood trend of like the tiny girl and the big guy. We can talk about that at the end.
No. Okay,
Oh
yeah,
my
we'll have to
God.
talk
Okay,
about
it's
that
so
because
funny.
that is really just the trope, isn't
Yeah.
it? Okay, well, we'll talk about that in our discussion. But basically, he like fingers her and he's like going really slow and he's like asking her what she likes and finding out what she likes when she doesn't know and goes down on her. She's like weirded out because she's like, "Hey, well, like I'm satisfied, but like you haven't even taken your clothes off."
Hmm.
And he's like, "No, like I'm really good. Like I'm good." But then she's like, "No, like I want it to be more equal, like playing fields or whatever." So he like masturbates in front of her. It's again super hot. It's a really good
No,
scene.
Ali Hazelwood is good at smut. Like
Absolutely. And yeah, we see them hanging out more, hanging out with Greg.
they actually date, which is nice. It's not like insta love. Like
Yes.
she describes 3 different dates that they go on. Do they all happen within the span of a week? Yes, but I do feel like it's like
Yes.
kind of that makes sense. Like when you really, really like someone, like you do see them more often, and I feel like that would
Totally.
totally happen to those kind of like two personalities of them too.
When you get together with someone and you do want to see them every single day, like
It's the
all the
college effect,
time.
honestly. Like every like new couple
Totally.
in college, that is what happens to them, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's so true. They finally have sex. She sees him more without his shirt on and he has science tattoos all over him.
Oh my God. Okay.
Cause he's a loser. Like he's a
Yeah.
nerd like her,
He's an
but like
RNA.
hot. Yeah, he has like RNA on his forearm.
Yeah. So when it was like just the cover, there were people on Goodreads who were like, okay, so this is like Hot Milo from Atlantis. Like,
Oh my
and I'm like,
god.
yeah. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
why do I want to read this book so bad? It's like, yeah,
Yeah, from my childhood crush on
I
Milo. Like
agree.
that's
The
so
pipeline.
funny. Oh my god, that's so fucking funny. I love that. I love that. This is the 3-chapter run of smut. Like he goes down on her while they're watching Twilight. It's good. She spends the weekend. They're spending like all the time together. But we know, the other shoe's got to drop.
Third act breakup impending.
Yeah. The climax of the book is near. And they go to another get together with Jack's friends, and Andy, one of the friends that's there, is like being weird to Elsie.
Mhm.
They play this big game, this round robin game, and she wins and she's like riding that high, but she realizes that Jack is just as happy for her winning,
Mhm.
which is also like very, very sweet. But at one point, she overhears Jack and Andy talking. And she's like, "You like that she beat you at this game? And like, she's a theorist and you're an experimentalist."
Your
And
reasoning wasn't good.
no, it was so bad. It was like, I was like, she beat you at one game once and you're,
And
you
you're gonna
want
make fun
him
of
to
someone for
dump
their
her?
line of work? Like when you
Yeah.
probably rely on like the other type of physicist to like do your work, like it just doesn't. We're adults here. Like,
It was so bad, but she's clearly just jealous. And
yeah.
he's like, "You're drunk. I don't want to talk to you about this. And also, like, don't talk to my girlfriend about this." And she overhears that. And I'm like, "You're not girlfriend, boyfriend. You like
Well,
have
he's
been
like,
on
I
3
want her
dates."
to, I would let her be my wife. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
That's one of my gripes and grumbles. I was like, "Oh, that's a lot." But regardless, they go back to Elsie's apartment, and she admits, like, I heard you speaking with Andy, like, what the fuck was that? And then it finally, like, comes to the surface, something that's been, you know, in the back of her mind, was that his article ruined her mentor's career, someone that she deeply respects, and, like, made a mockery of her field. He admits that he knows her mentor because it was also his dead mom's mentor. And he ruined his mom's life. And Jack tried to, like, do things about it when she had passed away, but no one would do anything. So he wrote this big article for revenge. They, like, have this huge argument and, you know, leave really upset.
Did you put it together before this? Like,
no. No, because I'm dumb.
No, it's not because you're dumb. Ali Hazelwood does have a habit of, like, making these, like, old men who are, like, higher up than her protagonist, the villain. So, like, I did see it coming. But I do think their argument made a lot of sense. Like, normally these third act breakups are, like, so, like, aggressive and people are, like, crying. But she, like, calls him out and is like, you want me to be honest, but you're not being honest with anyone, too. You're just hiding behind the fact that you caused all these issues and have never, like, fessed up to it.
Absolutely. Which is all super true.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, deal with these things now, because if you move on in the relationship and these things are just stewing, like, it's going to be so much worse.
Exactly. And he's like, I was waiting to tell you because you would have just, like, ran off immediately, which I guess is true. But I think he could have said it, like, maybe a date or two before he did, because it had come up and he had, like, swallowed hard and just, like, changed the subject. And I'm surprised that, like, George never said anything about it. Like,
yeah,
especially when George knew that Dr. L was Elsie's mentor. But
yeah, again, communication, like, clear communication could have solved this one. But days passed and they don't talk to each other, even though Jack does reach out to her, which I thought was also, like, a good sign.
Yeah.
And Elsie's finally able to meet with her mentor and be like, hey, I got this job offer from George. And he's like, why the fuck would you take this offer? You'd be, like, working under someone. You do not know what's good with you. You'd be working close to Jonathan Smith Turner. Also, I've been, like, turning down other like jobs that I felt were inadequate for you.
He goes from, like, 0 to 180. He's like the senile French man who's just so nice. And then he's like, you're a, like, pathetic little woman.
Yeah, he's like, don't be, like, such a silly little girl. Like,
oh my
you don't know what's best for you.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, actually, fuck you. She, like, stands up for herself for, like, again, not the first time in her life, but, like, the first really big time that she had all these little moments in the latter half of the book, but this was, like, the big, like, fuck you moment. And she goes and she accepts the job at MIT working with George, and she comes clean to Cece that she doesn't like high art film.
I loved this scene. Like, it was such a cute, like, sign of friendship, because, like, Cece is throwing cheese cubes at her because she's so mad, and then she's like, honey, did you really think, like, I wouldn't want to be your friend because of this? And then she just was, like, crying because she's so sad that Elsie thinks that way of her, and it's like, I loved it.
I know, and, like, I feel like I've been on both sides of this conversation, where it's like, I've been the person that's like, yeah, like, I lied about this, or, like, I withheld information because I didn't know what you would, like, think of me afterwards or whatever. And the person's like, of course I wouldn't have changed my opinion of you. But I've also been the person that's, like, missed cues where people are, like, upset or something like that. And it's like, sorry that I missed that.
Yeah.
In this time, Jack also writes an op-ed and he admits that what he did was wrong. And Elsie sees that. And so she goes to his office and they make up and they live happily ever after.
Incredibly romantic place to have the I'm sorry speech in front of, like, 8 professors in physics. Which I love that she didn't care that it was in public and that it was very quick and simple and it wasn't, like, drawn out. It's just like,
totally.
I'm sorry.
Again, though, but, like, again, I was like, okay, like, dating your coworker at work when you haven't even started the job. I was like, this is so like, all of this just doesn't make sense.
Someone from HR,
all.
We're so lucky that someone from HR was not there.
Yeah, like, hopefully she scanned the room for any HR professional before she admits.
He's, like, holding her head and is, like, confessing all these things, right?
Yeah, like that's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
God, I'm dead. Okay, let's get into our internet investigation. This is our cursory peruse of the internet of things you need to know. I didn't know that Ali Hazelwood is a pen name.
Yeah. She's also like German. Like she's
Yeah.
and sorry, this is a side thing about so many like romance writers is that they all have husbands, but they never talk or show their husband ever. And I always think about it. I'm like, what does their husband think when they read these sex scenes? Or like, do they think that something is lacking or something? I don't know. I'm just so
Or is
curious.
it inspired work?
I
I
just
want to know
don't know, but
so
they're all
bad.
married. And I have looked. I do not know what Ali Hazelwood's husband looks like, and I have looked very, very hard.
No, totally. Well, doesn't she like, yeah, big guys like you mentioned, and then blondes, I think.
She
Because
likes like small girls with like dainty little wrists that are like, and then this towering hunk of a muscly man. My favorite thing
yeah.
was before Bride was released, someone commented a review on Goodreads. I was like, what are the odds? She's a teeny tiny vampire and he's a massive werewolf, which I've since been informed isn't true. So she's breaking the mold.
Well, no, I think that's true.
Oh no.
It's basically true. I would say that's
That's
accurate.
fine. You know what? I like
Yeah.
the trope. So as somebody who's 5'2",
Yeah.
I enjoy the trope. So
Yeah, totally. So she actually was a neuroscience prof,
mhm.
which she's currently on a break from because she's pursuing writing. So a lot of her books feature women in STEM. And you got to meet her in this Boston meet and greet, and you sent me a picture of your signed copy.
I have it right here. Do you want to look at Ali Hazelwood's signature?
Yeah, it's literally, you guys, I'll describe it for you. It's an O and then an A and then a heart.
But the A looks like an O.
Yes, but what's the O?
It's an L,
No, it's
A-L-I.
not. No, that's not.
It it like
That's an OA.
that's the L and that's the I.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the heart is
Allie,
like
yeah.
above her name. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ali Hazelwood is not gonna win any awards for her penmanship anytime soon.
No, that's fucking true. She must type all of her books,
Stop.
her manuscripts. And you let me know that there is a Barnes and Noble exclusive version with an essay from Allie that matches the chapters of Love Theoretically with Taylor Swift songs. And we are obviously big Taylor Swift heads.
Hmm.
I'll post this on my Instagram, like all the chapters, unless that feels like spoilery, like,
I don't
or
think
kind of
so because like
unfair to
they don't really all
Allie.
like match exactly to me. Like the
No,
ad-lib one
no.
doesn't make sense. So I don't think it's a huge spoiler. Like I saw like when they like have their breakup, the song, I was like, I don't think they necessarily connect. So it's okay. Like the other side of the
Okay.
door was not giving the breakup to me. I don't know about
No,
you.
the other side of the
Door with your
yeah.
beautiful face.
Do any of them stand out to you though? Like you mentioned a few of them.
Mirror Ball and
Yeah.
Labyrinth because that is currently my favorite. I actually can't say
It's
that right now.
so
I can't say that right now. I know everyone hates Labyrinth, but it is like my favorite song off Midnight's right now, besides your
that's
kids.
so funny. Yeah. I think like the ones that I'll point out are just like the that 3 run, the chapters 20, 21, and 22
Hmm.
that everyone should reread is Lavender Haze, Labyrinth, and Snow on the Beach. Very cute.
I will say that before the book event, all of Midnight's was playing. She was a very interesting album choice, and Ali also brought like friendship bracelets to give out to people that ask questions. And I was gonna ask a question about Taylor Swift, but I did not get picked because I raised my hand too late. But yeah, thought that was
Oh,
so
that's
sweet and cute.
so
She's such a big
cute.
Swiftie. Also, like they do mention like invisible string in the book,
Yeah.
which I loved.
Because there is an invisible string, like
Hmm.
the MIT thing, but the brother thing. And oh
The
my
mom
God. And
too.
the article
Yeah.
with the mentor.
Hmm.
Man, that's so cute. I pulled this quote from an interview that Allie spoke in about love theoretically. It says, the person says, let's talk about tropes. What's your favorite trope this book uses and or explores? And it's the no one sees me for who I really am except for you trope. And I was like, like,
She did such a good job with it because Elsie as a person is so hard to understand. And to have the one, yeah, perfect, no notes.
no notes. It's a really, really good version of this.
Yes.
Because I feel like the other times that I've seen this done, Like, I guess you could say, like, ACOTAR is kind of like that with Feyre and stuff like that. But, like, this, because it's contemporary and, like, it's so relatable, it's just done so fucking well.
Yeah, most of the time it's too like overt. It's like they actually say that
Yes.
to you, and it's like, I don't really
Yeah.
get what you're trying to say here.
Yeah, it's so good. Okay, let's move on to our Wonder Whys. These are unanswered questions to the listeners. I think my only like really unanswered question is just like, does men like this exist? And we kind of already discussed that like they don't.
From my personal experience, no.
Yeah. Which when I read books like this and it gives me that feeling of like no one could compete
Hmm.
with the main character, Jack, in this instance. I'm like, I gotta take a few days off of reading. I gotta like mentally process this
Yeah.
before I like move on.
Like I do think people can accept you for who you are and like call you out on your bullshit. But I think it's
Yeah.
unlikely that that could ever happen without like you talking about it with them and having multiple conversations and knowing each other for years.
Agreed. It doesn't, you're totally right. This maybe isn't unrealistic that you should hope that like a long-term partner can anticipate your needs like around diabetes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But you're totally right. There just needs to be more, it's probably more explicit communication, and it's probably after years of knowing them. Okay, our gripes and grumbles. These are our nitpicky problems we have with the book.
Sorry, I just read the
I
first one.
like
You're so right.
why is the messenger app she uses called iTwat?
Just make it like
I tweet or like
yeah, like twat is like a term of like what you call an idiot. Like why?
yes, or like a vagina. Like but in a derogatory sense. Yeah, in like I think Commonwealth countries
That's
that
so
aren't Canada, I guess.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird. Like just call it like I guess you can't say messenger. You can't say iMessage.
People have come up with better dupes in other books.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know how that made it through editing.
It's so bad. Like, just call it something else. Oh, yeah. At the start of each chapter, her students, like, are emailing her. And some were really funny. And again, because I work in higher ed, not as a prof or anything like that on the admin side, but, like, I was just laughing because this is students. Like,
Really? I was like,
it's really relatable.
I feel like students are people that I talk to in college are too anxious to not like do like three carefully written paragraphs that like very clearly explain why you're asking for an extension.
No, you would hope so because there is one email that's just like extension, please. No, I've had students that I've worked with that are like, yeah, I'm not coming in because like the vibes are off today.
Okay. I do think they like added to like the vibe of how overworked Elsie is and how much she's like needed by other people. But I do like there were a lot of
Yes,
them. Now after some
yes,
time you're like, I
yes.
know what this is gonna say. Like my dog ate my homework.
Absolutely. Speaking of bad like terms, she coins P-rection, which is like okay, also it's like you're a physicist. You would know basic biology that when guys have boners when they wake up in the morning, it's not because of pee. Or is it? Then I was like the second guessing myself. I'm like, I actually don't know.
Don't know. But then Jack
I don't think it is
overhears her, and
though.
because he loves her, he doesn't ask her about it. I would be like, let's sit down and talk about this word because I want to explain things to you. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Heterochromia, like,
Oh
think about that.
yeah.
So, like Jack's eyes, are they
Yes.
different colors? Are the irises different colors? I was trying to look into it.
Or like maybe you have like a splotch of one color in one eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. So it's like complete heterochromia would be where your eyes are different. And then, but I think there can be people that just have like a little splotch of a different
I don't think he has
color.
different colored eyes. But it wasn't talked about that much, thank God, because sometimes it's like in her beautiful blue and brown eyes, something like that.
No, literally. I'm pretty sure in Bride, which is the book, the Ali Hazelwood book that Melody's gonna read next, pretty sure one of the characters has violet eyes.
Oh, no.
Like straight up purple eyes.
When he looked into me in my dreamy violet eyes.
Yeah. Like what? Yeah, because I just read Bride over this weekend and it got me so hyped to read more Ali Hazelwood. But I will say there is a moment where both female main characters in the book find a picture of themselves in the male main character's bedside table.
That's
And it's
creepy.
like,
I'm
it's
sorry, in
weird,
real life,
girl.
like that would be
Yeah.
creepy if you kept that photo. But like I guess I get it because sometimes I looked at photos on my phone where it's like, I don't know, if you know, you know.
No, totally, totally. Like it's creepy in a sense, but then also like I would do that, I feel like. Like it's
Yeah.
also not creepy.
Ali Hazelwood turns out books so quickly that I do think
Yeah.
they copy a lot of the same tropes. Like in her
Yeah.
chess YA book, the main character also has family issues where she's like being overworked. And the guy also is like, I'm just gonna wait for you. I do talking about romance tropes, like you take your time or like you take your
Yeah,
time, I already know where
yeah.
I am. That is also one of my favorite tropes.
Oh my god, I'm blushing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we've talked about this a little bit, but just to like hit the nail on the head, Jack at some point moves way too fast. Like it is a slow burn and he's very explicit. Like he likes her so much that they have to like, yeah, like not have sex right away and stuff like that. But then there are a few times like he's like, oh, you need a job with insurance? Come work with me. Or like you live in a shithole? Move in
I
with
was
me.
yeah, and it's like he doesn't know her that well. Like he needs to realize that a
No.
lot of that is like how much of it was something he was making up in his head. Because she's like, I feel
Yes.
like I don't know you at all, and you know me so well, and that imbalance like would actually probably make me uncomfortable, honestly.
Absolutely. It's it becomes like a power imbalance of
Yes.
like of what you know with about the other person and what
Yeah.
they know about you. So yeah, totally. Like there was just those like few offhand comments that I
Hmm.
just feel like we didn't need from
I
him.
agree. It like got laid on too thick. We don't have to talk about Boston because we already did.
Yeah, yeah, just an inaccurate and just not enough Boston content. And you wrote, what is a
I
credenza,
know
Ali
you know this
Hazelwood?
because you're like
How do you
you
know
have
that
a
I know?
beautiful apartment. You're like actually an adult who has her life together. I'm sorry, another connective tissue. Ali Hazelwood also mentions a credenza in the chess book. And I'm like, this 18-year-old does not know what a credenza is.
Yeah.
I guess it's like another word for console table or like a TV stand.
Yes.
But it's like
Yes.
also a two-piece credenza. I don't even want to know.
No, totally. Like just call it like a fucking cabinet or
Yes.
like a now that I can't like a entryway table.
Just call it a table and people would not know
Yeah.
the difference.
Totally. Totally. Oh, yeah, and then you wrote Kirk. What is he in the book? No, literally,
I thought he was
who
like a
is
red
it?
herring. I literally thought like
Yeah,
he was
me
like
too.
another like physicist or something. Like I thought he would play a much bigger role. I guess he was just there so Ali
Same.
Hazelwood could laugh at Elon Musk because that's what he's like compared to.
Yeah, but does Cece like Kirk?
That is not resolved like purposely unresolved.
Yes.
If I had to guess, yes. Like my thought was that they were totally dating, and I thought Cece was actually going to move in with Kirk and leave Elsie.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, my hint, and I don't want to say anything with Bride too much, but I just think that her plan is to write a bunch of standalones, but I think she's going to expand the universes.
Okay.
And I could see like there being a second book of Love theoretically, but it being Cece and Kirk.
Oh.
Like maybe, I don't
Okay.
know. That might be a big leap,
No,
but
because in romance book, it's like it's like the fourth main character talks about a girl once. Next book, all about that.
totally. Or like they say that he's like too tough for relationships or something like that. And then the next book it's like, well, here's like the girl that comes along that solves that issue for
Like
him.
we don't talk
like
about Mia and like what happened
yeah.
with them, and then it's like a second chance romance.
Yeah, it's like the next book is like Mia and this other dude. That's so
Exactly.
fucking funny. I love that though, that you get to check in with characters at like
Yes.
another stage, but
I mean,
sometimes
she
it's
does
set up
it
like
in this book. She actually brings up, so Olive and Adam are from the first book. And I
yes.
thought it was so funny. I only noticed it this time, but Elsie was like, I don't want to tell Olive about like fake dating. Like, I don't think she's gonna want to hear it. But Olive and Adam met because they fake dated. And it's like, that's
Dated.
so clever. Like, Allie did like kind of a more natural integration. And then George is like, I'm gonna go get drinks with my friend B, who is the protagonist in the second book,
Just wait, so this is the love hypothesis.
and Love on the Brain, which I
Right,
like would
right.
recommend, but I'd say they're somewhat different. Like I'd say there's like Love Hypothesis for like the fanfic girls, and then Love on the Brain is like for the girls who are like love camp in romance. Like it literally goes off the rails in the last 20%. It's fucking insane. But I do actually really love Love on the Brain, even though no one really talks about it.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the least
Yeah.
talked about of her big books. So do they all take place in Boston?
No. So I Love
Oh.
Hypothesis takes place in California, but they do go to Boston at one point for a convention. Not a really strong sense of place. I would say Love on the Brain, which takes place in, I think, Houston, somewhere in Texas. That I think has the strongest sense of place. Because they spend more time outside. Like the character runs in the park and it's like super humid and hot. And that's all I know about Houston. Um,
Yeah, literally, like, same. And we have a mutual friend that lives there.
yeah, exactly. But they
My
all take place
God.
in the same universe. Like they all kind of know each other.
Yeah, yeah. Which, like, kind of maybe seems unrealistic
No, no.
to people, but, like, in higher ed, especially, or in academia,
Yeah.
it's like, no, you actually just know
In
everyone.
STEM,
Like,
exact. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh my God. Okay, I guess we kind of just talked about sequel scoop, but this is the tea on any upcoming sequels, seasons, like adaptations,
Mm.
or the general reception. Yeah, it's a standalone book, so we don't have any news on that. But obviously, it did really, really well. Like all of our other books, it was on the New York Times bestsellers list for like multiple weeks when it came out. And yeah, I think people really enjoyed it.
Her next STEM novel. Oh my God, Tori, did you read like the description? Do you know what it is?
No, what is it?
Oh my God. So it's inspired by like Cruel Summer. It's called Not in Love, and it's about a food scientist whose company is about to get acquired by this guy. And she like wants to keep her job, and all he wants is the company and her. And so they have like this high stakes love affair where like it's incredibly illegal because his company is
Yeah,
literally trying to acquire hers, and like
classic,
no one
classic
can
Allie.
know about their
Yeah.
relationship. And I think Ali has said that's like her spiciest book yet. And it's probably her most like adult because they're like having an affair. Like Cruel Summer
Oh my God, I am so fucking hyped for
this
that. And
summer.
I want to say how, like, once again, how good the smut was in this, because again, in contemporary romance sometimes, like, I don't know, it just like brushes over it, or
Yeah.
like whatever, which isn't always the case. Sometimes, like, yeah, the covers with the like cartoon characters are the like dirtiest books you've ever read. But like now that I read Bride and Love Theoretically, and I will read her other books,
hmm
like it's well worth it if you're just here for the sexy scenes.
Warning, Love Hypothesis only has one. Love on the Brain is more smutty, but I do like how like
Hmm.
she incorporates the romance into it. Like it's not just a smut
Yes,
scene like placed
yeah.
halfway through the book. Like this is actual character
Yeah,
development. Like Elsie learns things about
totally.
herself when she's physically with Jack, and that's like such an important part of any kind of romantic relationship. I like that it feels necessary.
Totally. And like sometimes I do want just a book that's smut, and sometimes I do want one that's like just romance or
Closed
whatever.
door.
The payoff is so much better when it's like slow burn
Yeah,
and sprinkled in, and not just like
I
I,
agree.
I find I find
No,
there's
you're
a
right.
place for all of these books, but like man, the payoff is so much better when it's like not right away.
Sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you have to hit a sweet spot. And I think she really does. Again, in these two books that I've read, I think that's a good
So
like critique of
excited.
her. Okay, this was so fun. Do you have any other like final thoughts on Love Theoretically?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I do, but I do like love this book. Like it's one of my favorite romances from last year. I read it three separate times. And I frequently like revisit it because I just think it's so well done in terms of actually developing like the real relationship.
Totally. I would defo do a reread of this. Again, I was telling Melody, I don't think this was when we were recording book beforehand, that I read it in like 2 days. Like
I read
couldn't
it
get
in 2 days
enough.
as
Like,
well. Like it was my
yeah.
first paperback. It was like one of the very first paperbacks that I picked up in my like 5 year hiatus of not reading a paperback book because I didn't think I could do it. And I finished it like that. Like I was at lunch. I read this book everywhere. Today I was at a coffee shop and I was like, they were playing Lover, which was actually really cute, but it was like ass out and I was like in the smut scene eating my bagel. It was wonderful.
That's so funny. Yeah, I love when you like go to bed reading and then you wake up and then you just like, you're like, I could do like 30 minutes before I have to get ready.
That's actually what I did with this book, I believe, after I read it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to plug your socials?
Follow me on Goodreads because
Yes,
I
yes,
post
okay.
on Goodreads a lot. I'm actually a very annoying person to be friends with because all I do is like log my books and like and comment on every single status of every single person I know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah. Follow Melody on Goodreads. Do you write like long reviews? You should start like a bookstagram or something.
It's like whenever I have to like do something for like social media or whatever, I just like clam up and I can't read anymore. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Well, it's also your job. So
yeah,
like
that's
it
true.
might be annoying to like also do this.
Yeah, and also like I don't like giving ratings because I just find it like diminishes how much I enjoy the book if I have to quantify how much I enjoyed it. But my friends complain because like, how am I supposed to know what you like when you don't give it a rating? And then I write like two paragraphs. I'm like, how am I supposed to know what you like? Like, I don't know how to read anymore. But I do give like reviews for most books I read, and I explain what I like. And I've started actually like saying like why I picked up the book, which I feel like is a nice little like analytical thing of like figuring out like where I get my book recommendations from.
That's so good because I've been steered so wrong by book talk so many
Don't trust
times.
Book Talk.
No.
I trust BookTube and I trust another book podcast.
Or
But
just
yeah.
even mutuals on Goodreads.
hmm Or
Yeah,
even like the
yeah.
Goodreads does articles like every week of like new books that come out and they actually have good taste.
Absolutely. Or like doing the like fucking research yourself. Like I know sometimes it's so annoying, but I was prepping for a podcast and I had to look for books that were published by indie authors this year
Oh,
that I wanted to
let's
read.
talk
And
after.
I had to go through like tons of book blogs. And so like sometimes you find books like you have to actually like put the research in.
That's actually one of my favorite things to do is look up books that I want to read. Like I'll just sit on Goodreads. They have a really good algorithm of like if you like this, you'll like that. And that is actually how I found like most of my favorite books is through their algorithm.
Interesting. Okay, Melody, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, I love this
You'll have
book.
to come back and we'll talk about another
Just
book,
let me
another
know
Ali
when.
Hazelwood.
Just let me know when. I'll see you for
Okay.
El Kennedy.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, some hockey romance. Sounds good. And that's the story of love theoretically. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Melody for joining me on today's show. If you want to hear about April's schedule, you can follow us on Instagram at Ready to Be Romanced. And if you're enjoying the pod, leave us a rating and review. Subscribing also helps. And if you have a friend who is also into romance novels, slide into those DMs and spread the good word. You can suggest a book or leave a voicemail via the links in the episode show notes. If you have a question or a comment about an upcoming book we're covering, or you want to add something to the list. Our next episode is Things We Never Got Over. Until then, happy reading. For Ready to Be Romanced, I'm Torry. Goodbye.